think about what people can do if they don't have to spend time on things that are boring. Slack automatically summarizes now like all the channels that I don't have to join. And so that's something that I don't have to waste time on. She doesn't have to waste time on. And instead she can grow her career in other directions.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with Sam Mallikarjunan, who is General Manager of Agent AI. And we're going to talk all about AI agents, what they are, how we can incorporate them into our busy workflows.
Yeah, so my name's Sam. I was early on the team at HubSpot, led HubSpot Labs. After that, founded my own startup, OneScreen.ai, exited that a couple of years ago. And now Agent AI is not part of HubSpot, but it was founded by Dharmesh Shah, who also founded HubSpot. It will eventually become part of HubSpot. And so, yeah, I've been running that project for the last year or so.
That's so exciting. I think, I'm not sure there's anything more hot in tech, at least, as AI agents. So maybe we just dive in and you can tell everyone what exactly is an AI agent? What qualifies something as an AI agent? Because I feel like I hear that term being bounced around all the time.
And this is why we shouldn't let engineers name anything, by the way. It's called artificial intelligence. Agent isn't super descriptive. And Sam Altman from OpenAI had a joke recently. It's like they're running out of weird number letter combinations to name their products. But yeah, so when we talk about an AI agent, we just mean it's an AI that is empowered to take specific actions on your behalf. So it has agency from that perspective. Instead of having to approve everything that it does, it can do some things for you. As opposed to what we think of like artificial general intelligence. So, an AI that can do anything as well as any human, which bit of a stretch considering humans can't do anything as well as any human. An agent has a focused context. So generally right now, an AI is going to be better at performing a task if it's specialized to do that task. If you think through like what tools does it need to have access to, that kind of stuff. You can build, an AI agent that can be work related. Like I have something that looks at my calendar every day and tells me who I'm meeting and generates an audio overview for me. So my morning walk, I can learn interesting things about them to talk about. Somebody built a Dungeons and Dragons agent, right? Like whatever like saves your time, whether it's professional or personal. I have a chess coaching agent. It's just easier for the AI to actually be good at what you want it to do if you create
Mm-hmm.
it so that it's focused and then let it take actions on your behalf. You just trust it to do stuff, and that's what makes it an agent. It has agency in the literal, if not philosophical sense.
Oh, that's like a whole other topic right there. But in the context of your chess coaching agent, for example, how is it different than just talking to ChatGPT about chess?
Yeah, so in my case, I have a chess coach, a human chess coach, and this is why AI is not replacing teachers anytime soon. They assign me, extras or videos to watch and lessons to do every week. And since I got really tired of having like a 20-year-old genius like tell me I'm an idiot every week because I mess things up, I have it look at all the games that I play and then have it tell me what videos I need to rewatch, and then have it create a quiz for me because I had to, pretend you are an expert in pedagogy, which is teaching. And then based on my answers, it then tells me how I could have changed my answer to prove that I better understood the video. So essentially what the coach was going to do for me, but not wasting his time or my time. ChatGPT, one, can't access tools, right? So like even just accessing my games is
Mm-hmm.
not configured to do that. You need a little API access. But then two, it's not focused, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
specifically want it to not just think about the world of chess. I wanted to think about the lessons I'm supposed to be watching. And then I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, to gauge my level of understanding. The other thing is language models are really bad at things that are objectively true or false, like
Mm-hmm.
chess. Like it'll just hallucinate that, my queen should have done something else. It's like can't fly, doesn't have wings. It's not how the game works. But even though, even all these models are really, really smart, they're not smart enough to do things that have to be like objectively true. So by
Mm-hmm.
creating an agent, and I use OpenAI's API in that agent in order to generate the questions and grade my responses. It's the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it that, it's not really set up to do.
Got it. So if you're a really busy professional, you're in back-to-back meetings, just trying to stay afloat, how do you get started with AI agents, or how do you even think about how they could be useful in your daily workflow?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was just map out how I spend my time. And there's a bunch of time tracking apps that kind of tell you this. In fact, my iPhone loves to yell at me and say, like, here's the apps you're spending time on and the tasks that you're spending time on.
Yeah.
And then I tried to like automate the things that were very time intensive and then just automate the things that annoy me. So I have AI agents that attend meetings for me so that I don't necessarily have to go to all the meetings. I have agents that listen to customer calls. It's a little more efficient to have the AI tell me like what it thinks I'm going to find interesting. How do I automate things that are annoying? How do I do things that I was going to do anyways, but just do them at a greater scale? So like even just taking the example of not having to prep right before a call, right? Because normally if we're in back-to-back meetings, it's like I'm going into the meeting, I'm like, what the hell is this meeting about? And being able to have it brief me in the morning on who I'm meeting. It also fetches like your LinkedIn posts and news about your company and stuff like that. So it generates my 10-minute overview for me. That saves me a lot of time because, stuff like that just helps me not spend the first 5 minutes of the meeting trying to remember why I'm there.
Right, totally. That's extremely relatable. So, technically speaking, maybe we could just talk about two of the workflows that you mentioned. So, let's start with that first one about the call, getting the person's background. So, do you go on Agent AI and there's like a template that you can use or a workflow, or did you have to set it up from scratch?
Yeah, someone else built that agent. It's designed to be used by people who are non-technical, but it's still, you know, requires some, especially when you need to do like an API integration or something like that. So I just use an agent that somebody else built. For some of the things I do, I can take an agent and clone it. About 10% of the people who make agents on our site just make the agents public for anybody else to use. But generally, you can find at least a good starting point for what you want. And if not, let us know and we'll build a template because if you have that question, so do 100,000 other people.
The idea is that you're basically, it's sort of pay as you go, like in terms of as you're using the inference that the agent needs to run the workflow.
Free.
Even
Yeah.
better.
So we incur all the costs for all the language models people use and all the other costs. For us to charge for those inferences or agent runs would be kind of like launching a CMS company and charging for website visits. Eventually, you'll be able to monetize agents just like in an app store if you want to, and then you can like pay people for the agents, but that's not our business model. Our business model is more about being really, really good at knowing what agents you should use. So learning what types of people use what types of agents and are happy or upset with it. And then eventually, like I said, we'll be folded into the HubSpot ecosystem.
So the give me the meeting briefing of the person that you sort of need to be a little technical to put that into your workflow.
No, so to use the agent was simple. I just connected my Google account so it could see my calendar. I connected my LinkedIn account so it knew who I was, and that's all I had to do. Then it's just every day it looks at my calendar, looks at my LinkedIn so it understands me, and then use Clearbit or something like that. Based on your email address, it enriches data about your company, finds you on LinkedIn, and just does all that for me. So I just get an email every morning with an audio file that I can download and then listen to while I walk.
Okay, and then I think the other one that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was the agent that attends your meeting for you. I think that will probably be of great interest. So, can you talk a little bit about how that works and how you set it up?
Yeah, so that one I did build myself. It actually just takes the meeting summary or the transcripts from Zoom, and then because I fed it context about me and like what my job is and everything else like that, it takes that transcript and summarizes it for me so that I get it kind of knows what one, it knows things that have been said before, so I'm not reading things that have been said in other meetings. And two, it tells me the things that it thinks I'll find the most interesting. So if there's like, issues with the team or if there's anybody brings up something that I have to deal with, it'll show me that, but I don't have to read the entire transcript. Like the engineering team's, updates aren't really that interesting to me
Right.
unless they bring up something like, hey, our Okta subscription or something needs work. And then rather than them having to reach out to me, like I just know automatically. In a perfect world, I'd love to have an agent that takes it one step further and can do that live and then just ping me if I need to join the meeting.
Yeah.
But, I think this there's a couple steps there that don't exist. Somebody more technical than me could probably build that.
What's the advantage to doing that versus using, like any of the many AI meeting note takers that exist?
So it's the context for me. Well, two things. One is I don't want to waste time reading things that I've read before, and we all know that in lots of meetings that happen throughout a company, like a lot of information is duplicative. But then two, being able to have it understand my job filters out all of the other notes because I really don't care about there's great. I think actually Zoom does it natively now, has action items and things beyond just the transcript,
Yeah.
but it's all generic, right? And that's the downside to AI is the more generic it is, kind of like the more mediocre in terms of usefulness. If you can make it focused, then it's more useful than just reading a slightly abbreviated version of a transcript, which is what most of those tools do.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I think we started talking about like if you're a super busy professional, how do you get started with AI agents? And it's so funny. I feel like as we're talking more about it, it just is basically a fancier word for saying a workflow, something that's going to automate your workflow essentially. So your recommendation is to go through how you spend your time and see essentially what can be automated.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, by the way, if you do have an EA or assistant or anything else like that, they're the ones who are going to know. So my EA has automated huge swaths of her job, which is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And then
Yeah.
she's using that extra free time to go, either do professional development, she's taking lots of courses, or like do more interesting things. Like she wants to get involved with support and like the business development team. So like if you're lucky enough to have an awesome EA, just make sure that they know that they're not working themselves out of a job, which
Right.
is I think everybody's concern.
Exactly.
And as long as you're a good manager and you know that you want to be developing people and you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to have somebody never, replacing themselves, once they know that and don't think that they're just going to get laid off because you don't need them anymore, then you'll be
Mm-hmm.
surprised. Like they'll figure out a bunch of stuff for you. Like even the weekly summaries that my team does, she used to watch those and do like an executive summary for all of us. Now she just has an AI do that and she can spend the rest of that time doing things that are more interesting to her.
Wow. So I guess I was going to just ask you about that, the idea that, people think that AI, specifically for the EA job, that gets sort of automated away. What is your answer to people who are, well, number one, people who want to, let's say, replace their EA with AI? Is that doable? What do you think about that?
Think you can replace an EA in large part because AI still doesn't have judgment, right? Like, Rushmi, who's my EA, knows that like if a startup founder pings me that to say yes, right? If I have time, because I care a lot about helping founders or like, younger professionals if they want to have a mentoring call. But if you want to have like a sales call, AI is not good at detecting whether or not something's a sales pitch or whether or not somebody
Mm-hmm.
actually does just want to chat for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of like value judgment, I think is something that like no AI is going to do. Like it's workflow software that's gotten good at understanding language. It's not a person that has judgment. But then too, think about what people can do if they don't have to spend time on things that are boring. And,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Slack automatically summarizes now like all the channels that I don't have to join,
Right.
right? And so like, that's something that I don't have to waste time on. She doesn't have to waste time on. And instead she can grow her career in other directions. She really wants to do sales for some reason. So like, she
But the
can.
Slack, it's an interesting thing about the Slack summarization and the judgment. Do you think that the Slack AI is good enough to, like, do you get what you want to get out of that, or is it falls under the like generic need to dig in and actually read the messages? That's what I find. I find that so much of the summarization is just like it doesn't have enough depth, or it doesn't know like what I'm looking for specifically.
Yeah, that's an agent I wish somebody would build is just like pull from Slack and just do what they want to do. But again, just like my meeting attending AI
Yeah.
agent, do it with the context of things I actually care about.
Yeah, that's sort of what we do, but we do it in the sense that we assume that people care mostly about like what do I have to do? Like what am I on the hook for? What are people asking from me? And then, you know, I think it's pretty common that Slack is so noisy that you end up missing a lot of things and you're like, "Oh crap." Sam asked me to do this thing and I totally missed it. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve. But I do think that there's just so much happening in Slack that the summarization can make you feel like you're not getting the full picture.
Yeah. In the early days of HubSpot, before we were big, now they have like 7,000 employees or something. We just had a wiki page called like, Who do I ask about what? I was roughly like employee 150 there, which is still too many people to know. And like even an AI that does that, it's like if you're having a Slack conversation or an email conversation, being able to
Mm-hmm.
know like who on your team might be able to actually help with this, who's already
Mm-hmm.
working on something like this,
Yeah.
or the inverse of that, which is there was a conversation in Slack yesterday in our product channel that
Mm-hmm.
like I saw and tagged him in it because I knew he was talking to the company that the product team was saying that they wanted to work with. But without me kind of making that connection, I think that's like an interesting opening for AI to get really focused, right? Like if it could connect to the CRM and
Mm-hmm.
know that the BD person's talking to that company and like anybody mentions that company, maybe that's something I want to surface. That type of
Mm-hmm.
fine-tuned context is what no generalized AI has.
Right.
That I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah. Where are we in the growth cycle of agents and sort of adoption across businesses and the enterprise?
It reminds me so much of the early days of the mobile app stores where you could talk to, I was like moderately technical, but not enough. You could post things that you wanted people to build or just ideas and problems that you had. There's a lot of activity around that. Right now, there's the people who have technical skill and there's the people who know problems worth solving. And there's still that gap between those two. I think that's the blank canvas problem is still the issue. The technology is, for the most part, there. There's not
Hmm.
much that people really want to do. Use cases that I come across that are like fundamentally impossible. Some of them require like API integrations to like connect different tools or like
Hmm.
functions that need to be written, but it's like relatively basic stuff. I think the big issue now is just that people like us don't know what's possible. The people running businesses don't necessarily know what's
Totally.
possible,
Yeah.
and the engineers don't know what's worth solving. Somebody's working on building this agent. Replacing sales reps is hard. Replacing prospects is actually easy. So something that allows BDRs or junior reps to practice against synthetic prospects based on your company's
Mm.
actual CRM data. And our head of engineering, Andre, who I've worked with for 10 years, he just like didn't think that was cool because he's never had to do film nights and he's never had to do role play. And like I've had to train hundreds of sales reps and like sit there and do that role play and everything else like that. So there's just that gap between, think problems that are worth solving and the people who have the technical skill to like make that extra leap. But I think we're
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah. I think that's also maybe one of the things with busy professionals. And I have this myself where I have an idea for a workflow that I want to automate. And then I get into a tool and I don't have the attention span or the ability to cycle through the many iterations to get it to the point where it's that engineering tinkering mindset, I feel like. So, what would be your advice for people who don't have a bunch of time? They have some ideas of workflows that they want to implement, but there's that gap of the idea and the actual implementation. What would be your advice there?
So the good news is that it is not a lot of technical skill to build these agents. It's just more than I have and also more time than I have. But the most prolific agent builder on our site is my 16-year-old nephew who lives in rural Tennessee. So you don't need to hire an AI developer or bother your engineering team. If you can articulate what you want, it's something that
Mm-hmm.
you can fairly easily outsource. You don't have to be senior engineers. And we have a community, by the way. Like there's a bunch of builders who just have, if you have ideas, go to community.agent.ai and like somebody will
Mm-hmm.
pick it up. But even if you don't, like it, you can outsource that pretty easily. I text my nephew a lot and say
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, like, is this possible?" And he'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, cool, I'll have it in a week."
Oh my God, those Gen Alpha probably your 16-year-old.
I think they're the Zoomers, right?
The Zoomers?
So
Okay.
class and using
Oh,
Zoom.
that's all right. Well, I guess last question. Any resources, newsletters, books, anything that you'd recommend for folks who want to learn more about how to use AI agents in their workflows?
Yeah. So that's actually the other big time saver that I've done. We all know that like 80% of books we read are either fluff or things we already know. Same with like podcasts. I have an agent that also listens to all the podcasts for me,
Oh my gosh.
and then feeds it into a script to Notebook LM via
Mm-hmm.
Google and has it generate a new podcast for me. So there's a bunch of great sources out there. I like the AI Daily Brief. It's a podcast. Marketing Against the Grain is the HubSpot CMOs thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
they have a specifically marketing angle. But I also have a read MIT Review, Harvard Business Review, The Economist. I'm consuming a lot more content a lot more efficiently. For all of us who can't keep up with everything, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the start is just get all of the things that you want instead of just having to pick and choose specific ones and
Mm-hmm.
have it create a new podcast or newsletter summary for you.
And that is that a workflow that you can find on Agent AI?
But I think you'll have to clone mine and make your own because I haven't yet built it so that a user can just enter, here are the things that I want. I
Okay.
have it hard coded to say, go to this site, then go to this site, then go to this site. That's pretty straightforward. I haven't written code that anybody has used in 20 years, and I can use this stuff. So
Okay. Well, that's inspiring, and I'll definitely link to that in the notes. Thank you so much, Sam. This was so illuminating, and I feel inspired to try to figure some of these workflows out for myself. So I really appreciate the time.
thanks for having me.